Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome to the Digital Arab Film Series, which is a collaborative effort that is presented by the Arab American National Museum, the Arab Film and Media Institute, and Arte East. I want to wish you all a very happy Arab American Heritage Month and Ramadan Kareem to those of you who are observing. My name is Dave Serio, and I am an educator and curator of the Arab Film Festival at the one and only institution dedicated to telling the history, culture, and contributions of Arab Americans, the Arab American National Museum, which is based in Dearborn, Michigan. Thank you all so much for joining us for today's Talkback with director Mike Mosallam and producer Sarah Bazzi for the beautiful film Breaking Fast, which should now be available for up to 48 hours for those of you who RSVP'd. To talk a little bit about this series, and then we'll get into our Talkback. The series really grew out of a need to create a safe space for Arab and Arab American filmmakers to share their stories with the world. We see ourselves as some of the foremost, one of the foremost spaces for Arab Americans to call home and to have a safe space and to feel comfortable to share their stories through us so that we can kind of bring our different communities together. Also, with everything going on in the world, we felt that this was one of the best ways that we could connect communities and different people together, right, through film, through art, and through dialogue. I'd also like to acknowledge that the Arab American National Museum resides on Anishinaabe land and resides within the region with the largest concentration of Arab Americans in the country. I'd also like to acknowledge that our neighboring city of Detroit is also on Anishinaabe territory and other indigenous peoples' land. And also Detroit is known for being the largest majority Black city in the country with a long legacy of African diasporic roots. Together, we uplift the larger ethnic and racial fabric of our local, national, and even international communities. Thank you again to our wonderful partners, Arte East and Arab Film and Media Institute, who've made today's program possible. And I encourage you, if you're not familiar with any of our institutions, to please check us all out. We have a lot of really great programs and things coming up. And we, of course, appreciate your continued support of all of our institutions. So now on to our Talkback. So if you've joined us for these programs in the past, typically we live stream our programs at a very specific time, and then we'll come in for like a talkback afterwards. However, after hearing from like a lot of our audiences, and specifically just about like the issue of conveniency, we've made the decision to make this film and most likely many other films going forward, more of an on-demand style so that folks are able to have a window to watch the film at their leisure. They can kind of start it and stop it as they would like, instead of live streaming the film. So we've heard from our communities and we're happy to oblige. So just wanted to share that quick kind of update with this program. So instead, what we're doing is we're leading off with the talkback to kind of inspire you even more to watch the film, although you should be plenty inspired already. So instead, we're super happy and grateful to have director Mike Mosallam and producer Sarah Bazzi in the virtual house to talk a little bit about their beautiful film. If you are joining us live at this time, we are encouraging audiences to ask questions to Mike and Sarah. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. Lastly, before I introduce our amazing speakers, I want to share that we are committed to creating an arts sector rooted in justice and ensuring a space that is free of racism, transphobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, ableism, misogyny, classism, and all other forms of bias. We also encourage freedom of expression and aim to create a brave, respectful, generative space. And our expectation is that our guests will honor these ethics. It is my esteemed pleasure to welcome our two wonderful speakers today. First, I'd like to introduce Mike Mosallam. So Mike is a producer, director, writer for theater, film, and television. Through his production company, Mike Mosallam Productions, or www.watchmmp.com. He and his team produced short films, Breaking Fast, which was screened at Cannes Film Festival, Brothers, which we actually screened, which is, again, one of the only films to ever make me weep uncontrollably in the best way possible. Brothers is also an 11-time jury and audience award winner. Both were written and directed by Mike, along with the upcoming Ubuntu film. His feature film debut, Breaking Fast, which of course is the film for this month, which is based on the short, had its world premiere at the CineQuest Film Festival in March 2020, and its Los Angeles premiere shortly after thereafter at Outfest Fusion. Despite the current global pandemic, Breaking Fast is having a healthy festival run. He is the creator and co-executive producer of the critically acclaimed TLC series All American Muslim. Most recently, Micah is executive creative consultant on season 2 of Hulu's Rami, episode 9. He is currently writing his second feature, loosely based on his experience as a preteen living on his brother's college campus. On the theater side, Mike has produced and directed more than 100 theatrical productions, from large-scale musicals, intimate cabaret settings, plays, concerts, and multimedia theatrical events. Mike, thank you so much for being here. It's a real pleasure to have you. And then I'm also excited to welcome Sarah Bazzi. So Sarah is a film and television producer whose most notable credits include the Emmy-nominated hit series Ozark for season 2, and the groundbreaking feature film Breaking Fast, written and directed by Mike Mosallam and released earlier this year. Most recently, she co-produced the short film Are You Still There? Alongside Academy Award-winning director Rayak Zebtachi, which made its North American premiere at the 2021 South by Southwest Film Festival. Previously, Sarah was with the ABC Television, where she helped launch a number of digital original series, such as Viola Davis produced American Coco and Ty Burrell's Boondoggle. Her work has been seen nationally and internationally at the Cannes Film Festival, Claremont Friend International Film Festival, Frameline, Inside Out, Toronto, and the Arab Film Festival. She is first-generation Lebanese American and currently works at Netflix in production operations. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Sarah, what a bio, Sarah.
In fairness, Rika's name is difficult to pronounce. It took me a minute too.
I apologize for butchering the name. But no, thank you both very much for joining me in this virtual space. Happy Arab American Heritage Month and Ramadan Kareem to you both. Yeah, very excited to have you both. If you've ever been to any of my talkbacks, I like to kind of plant the seeds of questions and then just kind of hear like the journey of creating these like magical films like Breaking Fast. So if it's okay with you both, I'm going to kind of dive in. And my first question is always tell us a little bit about the journey of Breaking Fast. How did this magical film go from the first idea, wherever it came from, to this amazing feature film that's just like, dominating film festivals?
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much, Dave, to you, to the Arab American National Museum in my hometown, our hometown of Dearborn, Michigan, which I love so much, and also to Arte East and the Arab Film Institute for having us and for co-hosting this event. It's a pleasure and a thrill to be with you always, so thank you. Breaking Fast, the short, is where this journey, this magical journey begins. I was working at a film studio in Los Angeles by the name of Sunset Gower Studios. And on that lot, another TV project was in the process of being written, and it's called Looking, and it was on HBO. And I became quite friendly with the creator of Looking, a gentleman by the name of Michael Lannon, and the whole writing team. And Michael and I were having a coffee one day, and he was asking me a series of questions about who best represented me on film and TV. And I was in my mind thinking, oh God, I wonder if this is all sort of a plot to add a character, a Muslim character, into the next season of Looking. But really, he was just being sort of inquisitive. And he asked me that question, who best represented me and my friend's journey on film and TV? And the sad reality hit me that I really couldn't think of anyone. I couldn't think of an experience that looked or felt like mine, an experience that wasn't shrouded in secrecy and shame, an experience that wasn't shrouded in shying away from one's ethnic or religious origins, And so he encouraged me to write it. And I was a storyteller and a theater producer and a theater director, and I had worked on several short film projects, but mostly in the capacity of producer and director. I had never really thought I was a writer until one day someone told me I had a story to tell. And I wrote the first draft of the short Breaking Fast. And I remember handing it the very next day to Sarah, who, you know, we're obviously best friends and very close, and we see each other and every day. And I handed it to her, and she looked at me and she said, "Well, I guess you're a writer." And one of the producers on Looking was a friend of mine, and I handed it to him, and he said, "Wow, we are going to make this. Let's make this together." And so we all made the short on the most creative shoestring, bag borrowing and stealing in a halal way, of course. And we made that film, and we would have never thought it would have had the life that it had. And one of the interesting things about the short was that it never was intended to be a feature. It was really just a short film. It was going to live how it lived, and that was that. And we ended up playing Cannes amongst a dozen other notable festivals. And at the end of each of those screenings, people would say, "What's next? What's next for these characters? We want more of this. We want more of this story." And so I remember on the plane ride home from Cannes, I opened my laptop and I started outlining what is now the feature version of Breaking Fast. And the funding for that film came from a result of someone seeing the short. And here we are, you know, 5 or 6 years later with a feature film on streaming platforms, and here with you talking about it. And it's been a surreal, and, you know, I actually think magical is a really the right word to use, because it is so rare for people to make movies in this day and age when they're not backed by major studios. So I'm just so thrilled that we, you know, by the grace of God, were able to make this film. Was that too long of an answer? I talk a lot.
That's perfect.
Thanks.
No, it was perfect. Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. Can you talk a little bit about this idea of, you had said, like, your friend, I think, that had told you, you know, can you think of a film that you see yourself reflected in, and you couldn't think of anything. So can you tell us a little bit about the journey of creating a normal character, like a character, like one of the things I think that's so beautiful about this film is just, there's so much normalcy, and it's such a beautiful thing to see, and you can connect with it so easily. So can you talk a little bit about, like, the normal, just the, you know, normalcy of creating characters like this?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that Seth, my producing partner, and I talked a lot. It's a lot that we talked with Sarah and the production team about. And I think what makes a project like this feel so universal, regardless of your ethnicity or your religious background or your sexual orientation, is that so much of what these characters go through are very universally themed, you know, and I think that was really, really important to me. I think at its core, for me, it was about being able to see someone who looked like me, felt like me, getting love, receiving love, accepting love in the same way that I had spent my, you know, life in the 90s watching all of these white women, you know, very casually do it in easy ways. And, you know, I often say that if Julia Roberts were a gay Muslim man living in West Hollywood, she would be the lead of my film, because she was such an inspiration in creating the very, very intentional tropes in this film, you know? I think that especially when it comes to the conversation of intersectionality between Arabness and queerness, or Arabness and Muslimness and queerness, we have a very monolithic conversation around it. And I think we can all agree, especially in 2021, that none of those individual identities are a monolith. They all are a very diverse kind of story telling. And so I think I was sick of seeing the same story of Muslim equals anti-gay, and gay equals anti-faith, Arab equals scared, yelly, sort of all of the things that Hollywood has done over the course of Hollywood's tenure of Orientalizing Arabs and Arab Americans. And I wanted to create a version of the world that felt and looked like mine. I mean, my Arab American heritage was about food and culture and family and friends who are like family, and so much more than anything that's socio-political. And I don't think we get the Hollywood treatment of humor in the way that is so very true to my experience, and I think Sarah would agree with this as well, that I wanted to create something that felt like it could live in the living room of 400 relatives that I know, and I think for me that was really important. I don't know, Sarah, if you wanted to add anything to that point.
I mean, I think that you covered everything so beautifully. I think, like, for myself as a producer, what drew me to this project is that I've also just never read a script that I walked away feeling like, oh my God, this is what my family would look like on TV. Or, this is me and my friends, and I want to make this movie. I feel like when I first arrived here, it was like just reading everything that was the opposite of that and sort of like drudging through from project to project. And then I think, one thing that is very special is when you finally like make something that just is in every way, shape, and form just feels magical, from when you're reading it to when you make it to when you cut it to when you distribute it. And so that really has been the journey of Breaking Fast. And like also just hearing people's feedback, people like seeing themselves in the characters for the first time, and some of the things that they have said either to the producing team or to Mike. I mean, it's very emotional for sure.
Sarah's got those West Hollywood helicopters going on right now.
Yeah, I don't know why, and I keep muting myself because I think someone's on the loose.
To that point, and I don't want to get so heavy-handed right at the onset of this conversation, although I'm sure we'll get there eventually. But I think too, there's been such erasure of these kinds of people and these kinds of characters, and there's such a fear around really leaning into the humanity of people who fall within these intersectionalities. And I think especially as a practicing and devout Muslim myself, like to bring to light these kinds of conversations and these kinds of things. I mean, let's not forget, Breaking Fast is a romantic comedy that leans very much into the tropes of romantic comedy. It is not a how-to on how to be Muslim or gay and Muslim. It is the experience of really three, gay Muslim men who all triangulate within those identities in a very different way. But most importantly, in the mundanity of their day-to-day lives, you are seeing people that you never get to see. You're hearing conversations that you often don't get to hear, and generally shy away from. And I think more so for people who have a staunch opinion about this topic in one way or another, for me, this is really a love letter and a Valentine to people who are really sick of not being heard or not being seen. And it's a way of building bridges between people where, people don't have to feel so isolated and alone. I think, I think we can all agree, especially after a year of quarantining, that isolation is very real and that people are in desperate need for some interaction. And so when you lay all of that on top of, what already happens within society, sadly, very naturally, having a space to sort of live in the love and the gratitude of community that you can build feels really both in the vein of my faith and also just right for mankind right now.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for sharing that and being very intimate with these questions so far. I kind of don't even want to moderate. I kind of just want you and Sarah to kind of just like chat back and forth because you guys seem to vibe very well with each other. So,
Well, we do. We vibe very well.
Yeah, lots of vibing. Decade in the making. Lots of vibes.
Lots of vibing.
But I know I think you make some very excellent points, right? And I won't like repeat anything you said, but I think I think you both say it very excellent, right? I mean, like if you look at the history of like Arabs and Arab Americans and anything Arab, right? Whether it's the Arab world overseas or Arab Americans or whatever, the cookie cutter characters are always kind of there, right? It's darkly themed, or the environment looks the same, or there's just so many stereotypes that we see, and it is so refreshing to see like just normal characters, right? You don't need to have like somebody who's got this dramatic story and crazy, superpower. Like it's so nice to see like a normal character who's dealing with so much, and and like you said, complex characters too. It's not just like these aren't boring one-dimensional characters. So,
and something that that we found in the casting process of this, speaking of like sort of not just how we are reflected from the screen, but how we view ourselves as a result of what has been reflected back to us. Obviously I'm an Arab American Muslim filmmaker making a movie about an Arab American family who are all Muslim. And in doing so, I felt, and Sarah's Arab American Muslim, we had a lot of Arab American and Arab Canadian crew members, and there was a real importance for me to get it right. We needed to get it right. And that first step in that was in our casting process. And in the casting process, what I found, and I told our casting director, Tina Quebecer, who was incredible, I said, I want to see every Arab actor for this film. I want every Arab actor to know that a film for them, by them exists. And, and with a little help from us, I mean, we gave her a list of 22 Arab countries, and we were like, you got to really make sure that you're not bringing us, South Asian actors for Arab roles, or Latino actors for Arab roles, or Iranian actors, all of whom were incredible and were pitched to us every day. But there's been a sense of brown washing in Hollywood, and we were trying to make this as authentically specific as possible, because look, we all know exactly who the Arabs are when we're watching TV. We know what the accent is, where they're from, what country they're, we know. So like, I would never want to be responsible for putting a film out there where people were like, is that real? It had to be real with us. But what was so interesting was that when actors come in, and I apologize if I'm saying anything that people already know, but when actors come in, they get the script, or they get sides, what are called sides, sections of the script to read. And as I mentioned, this is a rom-com. I mean, we were looking for charming, funny, sweet, we were really, we knew the tone of our movie, and Arab actors would come in and just be so heavy-handed about the material, and I would say like, hey, lighten up. What's going on? This is fun. Have fun. And the idea of having fun in an audition room was sadly has become second nature for a lot of Arab actors out there. And I'm so excited to be one of many, many, many stories being told right now where Arabs get to live in a very authentic place of who they are and where they've come from, so that we can, be nuanced, be complex, have a full 360-degree of emotional spectrum. I think all of the actors on set were so honest with us about how freeing it was to just be themselves, just sort of pull from a real life experience. I think, Rilla Gardnier, who plays Mama in the film, who's sensational in the film and is a tremendous actress, said, this is the first time I've ever been able to be funny. So she said, I come to set, I put on the hijab, and I'm crying over some dead son. I'm worried about something my husband is going to do. And she said, this is the first time someone has asked me to be funny. And I feel so free. And I hope we create more projects where we allow ourselves to be and live within that authentic self of ours. That's it.
Sarah, did you want to add anything?
No, honestly, like just when it comes to the only thing that I will say, so yes, I do want to add something about Rola in specific, like the fact that she also gets to be funny as an Arab mom, but also gets to be like tender and loving and sweet and embracing and warm with her son, I think is really something special. Like as an Arab woman, she reminded me a lot of my mom, who was like screaming at me one second and like very sweet and tender the next. And I think like a lot of time Arab characters, Arab women, like we don't get that full range of emotion. So that was very special to see her journey throughout the film, like just cracking up one second and just like so sweet. I mean, she's the mom you want.
Yeah, that's exactly right. She is
and deserve, the mom you want and deserve.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and I just as an observer who's seen the film, I really appreciated that. I noticed those. I was like, it's just so nice to see characters who are connected to the characters that they're playing culturally, linguistically, whatever the case is.
I mean, it makes a big difference. It really does.
I mean, Mike, I may have said this to you, but like to this day, when she, after like Hassan, when she like just so sweetly just touches his shoulder, it wrecks me. I mean, and I know what's gonna happen. Hassan the character, Hassan the character, Hassan Sleiman, yes.
Yeah. It is one of my favorite moments between them, a moment of no words, just a touch. She fully understands what emotions he's experiencing, and she's right there for him. And God, who doesn't want that? Everybody wants that.
Yeah, for sure.
No, that's wonderful. Speaking of cast, I wanted to switch gears a little bit, not completely, and talk about the choice of having a non-Arab love interest for our main character. I thought that was just interesting. Like, so I'll be quiet, but I'm just curious kind of what was the thought process? Was that intended? Was it something that came later? So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. And it's a great question. I appreciate it. Cal, the character of Cal, is an embodiment of a very common love-hate relationship that a lot of people have with the community of West Hollywood, right? And the community of West Hollywood is pretty homogenous in its color. It's pretty white. And when you are not a white, tall, buff guy, there's like a hierarchy of where you sort of fit into that. So on the onset of creating the character, that is sort of where he fell in. He was supposed to be that archetype. And then as you sort of peel back the layers, you realize there's so much more to him, and he isn't a stereotype, and he sort of has to, in the same way that Mo has to combat stereotypes in his life, as does Cal, and there's a commonality within that, right? But what's really interesting and what was really important to me in this film is that this is a love story between those two men, but the savior of Mo is not the white man. The savior of Mo is his best friend Sam, who is also Arab and also Muslim. And as much as it's a love story between Mo and Cal, it is a love story, a brotherly love story between the relationship of best friends, Mo and Sam. And it was really important to me, especially there's a scene towards the end of the film, just before the big climax, where, Sam just lays it out for him and says, "Why are you afraid? Do the thing that you know you want to do. Life is great. You can do it." And there's such a tenderness in the way these two Arab males interact in a way that we rarely get to see two Arab men who are strictly platonic just love each other. And that was really important to me. It was important to me to have that sense of imagery and and just have two guys who are friends emotionally support one another in a way that felt necessary, right, and what should be normal.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I think you make some excellent points. It's nice to see that just normal friendship between the two of them. And I think you explained Cal's role very beautifully as well. So thank you for shedding some light on that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking.
Of course. So, I have to ask, I ask this with everybody I do these conversations with, how have audiences responded to the film?
I mean, I love the question because we opened, we were released wide on TVOD platform. So like Apple, Amazon, anywhere you can buy or rent a movie, earlier in January of this year. And we are holding our 96% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a very reputable scoring site. We were so blessed to get rave reviews from prestigious publications like the Hollywood Reporter and the LA Times, and and beyond sort of the industry recognition of the film has been the overwhelming. It's Ramadan, so I'm a little emotional. Overwhelming feedback from the community. And by the community, I mean several different communities, right? But most importantly, people who have said, thank you. I finally get to see myself reflected. And that's Arab, non-Arab, gay, straight, and everything in between, Muslim, non-Muslim. I mean, this is not one specific kind of person who's reaching out. It is really the gamut. And just to, we just did a Q&A, and someone said to us, and this is an example of so many of the kinds of things that are said to us. It was a celebrity said his partner had just come out to his family in Egypt. And he said they have yet to find the words to talk about it. And the film allowed them the words for the first time to talk about it and to heal. And there is something very powerful about that. I don't think this film or anyone involved is a savior by any means, but it does give me great hope and comfort that we are putting something in the world that lends itself to the healing in any capacity of people's immense hurt. And doing it through humor, doing it through love and laughter and acceptance and healing and friendship and family, all core values that anyone who's grown up Arab knows are very, very important. So for me, I focus there. I mean, I can't tell you the kind of response, constantly just, I don't run our social media platforms, but like the people will forward me messages that we get. And I mean, it's overwhelmingly humbling and beautiful. And I'm so grateful that, and I just want to say one more thing. It's like a little weird, but I really, truly feel it in my heart. And I think, Dave, you'll understand this, and Sarah knows what I'm going to say. The existence of this film has been such a divine intervention. Like from the beginning to now, from every step of the way, every setback, every person who said don't, everything, there has been God at the forefront of this process saying do. And I can't tell you how important that was to me and how comforting in light of any fear that came along with this film, how much that has meant and how much that has comforted me along the way. So I hold very true that what we have here is an important film. And we probably won't know the full realm of its importance for, decades to come. But I love connecting with communities who are embracing this film.
Yeah. I think I agree with Mike. Definitely our film is not, none of us have like savior complexes that our film is going to solve all the problems. But God, I feel like from the very beginning, this story in this film, like it was well overdue that we start having these types of conversations within our different local and general larger spheres. And so it's really fills me with a sense of pride that our film sort of is the first vehicle by which people have to have those conversations. There always has to be a first. And I'm just so proud of Mike for what he's written. I'm proud of our team for what we've made. It is not easy to make a short film and take it from that to a feature and get it out and released. And so, when you're dealing with something this important, you just kind of just will yourself to keep going, because it gets pretty difficult at times. But this message is just way too important and really bigger than any one of us. So I'm just very proud of it.
And it goes unnoticed a lot because the title of producer is fairly nebulous in this industry, but Sarah's work in this film is pretty extraordinary. The lengths to which she went to make certain aspects of this film happen were super heroic. And it's also, I hope everybody who watches it will also recognize Sarah as one of the hospital patients in the bed. She also lives on forever in the film itself.
Yeah, we don't really have to talk about that right now, because I think as a producer, we are a species that are best served behind the camera. We like that. Mike was like, "Hey, you need to put on a gown." I was like, "Come again?" It's in a conversation, but again, I believe so strongly in this film that I had jaundice and I got in that bed.
She did. She did. She just lathered on that yellow base.
And you kept saying more yellow. I remember that vividly. I was like, I think we're good. I think we're there. I think we're good.
By the way, Dave, everything you just saw happen was every day on set. We had this was how it was every day on set. It was a joy to make this film.
But also, I mean, look, Dave, when you know somebody for as long as I've known Mike, for 14 years, and you are learning something new about them every single day, like throughout this process of just watching him deal with people, deal with actors, deal with crew. I mean, there is so much flying at you as a director. It is, I never, he is not a bad dancer, but wow, can he dance on set? I mean, that is just like, it is a melodic, beautiful waltz to watch. And everybody who is on his set feels it. And also, look, I've been on plenty of sets where the director sets a tone, and sometimes that tone is not a good one. But to step onto a set where everyone is respected and valued and treated well and treated fairly, and that really does start at the top. And we have these conversations all the time about like, when will Hollywood change? Well, people like Mike will change that. Directors like Mike will change that. We are catching up. And so I think, I'll get emotional, but that has been such a treat to watch, like, not only this director who I respect, but my best friend to be like this director that I respect has been really quite beautiful. And I know he doesn't like to hear this, but I'm very proud of his journey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dave, back to you.
Anyway, Dave, can we ask you something now?
No, you may absolutely not. But I will. Sorry. I have so many like questions and emotions and just like thoughts, but I mean, I'll summarize it very quickly to say, like, I think you both said it extremely well. Like, this film means so much to so many different people, and it's so wonderful to use film. I think that's when you truly know, well, not truly, but one of the ways you know that a film is such a powerful tool is that people can use it and take what they will from it. And in some cases, it is to have difficult conversations. In some cases, it is to see themselves displayed in the film, or you know, the emotions you want to see happen in your family or whatever. And I think, I think it's brilliant. And I love that it's changing the face, not only of like the Arab American community, but like Hollywood. And I think, I think it's just wonderful. And Sarah, I have to ask you a question about your acting. Have you been in front of the camera before? Because I did not know, and I know we don't know each other too well, but is this your first time in front of the camera, or have you been?
Yes, Sarah, your first time in front of the camera?
I don't know about like in front of the camera. I've definitely done some stage work in my hometown of Dearborn, Michigan. I was in the Arab American Comedy Festival 3 years running. That's actually how I met Mike, Dave. Mike cast me in the Arab American Comedy Festival when he was these helicopters, when he was in town from New York, and he put on the show with a couple of local producing partners, also Arab Americans. And I will never forget, like, I remember just wanting so badly to like be an actor at that time when I was still, a little naive. I wanted to be an actor, and I never felt like I could ever have the opportunity to be in the arts, in Dearborn. And then this guy from New York came to Dearborn and put on this show, and I heard about it, and I'll never forget like leaving him a voicemail because I thought I like missed the audition. So I called him and I was like, "Hi, this is Sarah Bazzi. I'd love to audition."
Exactly in that voice.
And I was just like a very like shy, different version of myself. And then I got into the audition room and he was just like, "What the hell?" Because I can really morph into this like larger than life Arab grandma pretty well. So,
I also want to give a shout out Rod Alawan, who is a Dearborn staple. Well, I mean, he no longer lives in Dearborn, but as a staple, used to create these videos for Dearborn. And
welcome home, Dearborn.
He asked me to produce one for him or with him. And Sarah Bazzi, there's some video out there, Sarah Bazzi just welcoming everyone to Dearborn. It is worth finding somewhere.
It's pretty funny. I have a DVD of it, but it's locked up somewhere. So you guys will never get it. But
don't worry, Dave, I'll send you a copy.
I think for me, I think like while I clearly respect actors, and I don't have the emotional bandwidth honestly to do what they do and really give that part of myself each and every day. But I think for me, like, producing really spoke to me because I really see it as a way to like a way to change the narrative. I want to make projects that are important, that are timely, that are like this movie, that are really going to help people, find the words to talk about something or see themselves in. That for me in my journey became more the goal. But thank you for the question, Dave. You really did your homework.
Well, I need to rewatch the film now and find you in the film, because now
no, you're good. If you missed it, you missed it. We're good.
No, watch it again, Dave. Watch it again.
I was like, isn't that what films are for? You can rewatch.
Yeah.
I know we're running a bit over time, but I do want to ask kind of one big question, and then I'll kind of wrap up with a smaller question. And then, Mike, I know you talked a little bit about this, so I'm going to try to mesh the questions about like the erasure of the queer community in Arab culture, but then also some of the maybe not even towards the film necessarily, but just negative comments in terms of just like queerness, whether it's directed towards the film or just the sentiment amongst the community. And I don't want to give power to folks who express these views. I mean, everyone's entitled, I suppose, but I don't want to give power to them. But how can we, I guess, like as people, whether it's through the film or just like ourselves, how can we, stop the erasure of the queer community, bring awareness, and also like uplift the queer, and simultaneously like uplift the queer community?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm sure there are a lot of answers to it, right? You know, and I think we could spend an entire time just talking about that. What I have found in my own life that has been successful is finding the people who uplift me and who I want to uplift and creating community with them. And probably almost as equally important to that is finding my voice and making sure that my voice is the loudest in my head, not the voice of other people. Finding that the things that I feel and say and do are a result of my actions and not the result of fear or desire of other people's actions. And so many people will say and have said that MO, that modus operandi for life, is selfish. And I can't think of anything to be further from the truth. To take care of yourself, to love yourself, to believe in yourself, to think that you are loved and worthy of love and deserving of love, and that you need to then spread that out to other people. It's very hard. It's hard in small cities. It's hard in big cities. It's hard when you have an accepting family. It's hard when you don't. It's hard when you fit in or feel like you fit into a queer community. It's hard. It's hard. Life is hard, any which way you spin it. And I think my job as a human and my job as a Muslim is to do whatever I can to make life a little less hard, both for myself and for others. And I think if we just tried to make life less hard for people, I think slowly but surely we would find a path where, you know, whomever wanted to live their best true life felt the freedom to do so.
Beautiful.
This concludes my TED Talk.
Sarah, did you want to add anything?
I mean, you know, I think like when you're making a movie like this, and you're telling a story for the first time, there is just a, I think there is just like, I don't know if we've ever like specifically had these conversations, Mike, or not. Like, I just think there is just a part of yourself that goes into it just with an understanding that like whatever the noise is going to be over here, that's not really relevant or important to what we're doing over here. You know, the noise is never going to go away. There's always going to be, you know, I think a lot of times too, like in small communities, but also big communities, like a lot of people, whether it be homophobia, whether it be like misogyny, like anything that you use to other someone else, like I don't even know that people are asking themselves the true question of this is like something they believe, or is this something that has been their MO or their cultural MO or their community MO for so long. So, you know, who knows if even our film may be seen by one of those people that finally gives them the tool that asks themselves the hard question, you know. But regardless, I think like it was just, I think our team did a really good job of like blocking out the noise and really focusing on the larger mission, because there wasn't a lot of noise, thankfully, but also like the praise and the people that it affected were just, it was just so much more important and so much bigger
louder,
than anything, and louder, absolutely, and louder. And so, you know, from the very beginning, the whole team was on the same page all the time about this, you know. And I think to Mike's point about finding one's community, you know, we really became each other's backbone and strength and reassurance. You know, if anybody was ever having a day, there were 5 people there that was like, no, this is the mission. Yeah. So it was something very special for sure.
And that too, I mean, like that is exactly what I was referring to earlier by sort of being led by the divine. Like there's no way
absolutely
without that guidance of some power so much higher and stronger than all of us that we were able to do what we did.
Dave, honestly, just not to get into like specific anecdotes, but I also just want to also call out not only like crew and actors and producers and talent, like I went to locations and owners of grocery store, owners of restaurants, told them what this movie was about, and they were like, wait a minute, we will give you whatever you want to help you save money and do what you need to do. You know, Open Sesame here in West Hollywood provided all the food in kind, not because he loved me and Mike. Yes, he's a friend of ours, but because he was like, what you guys are doing is amazing. And I've never been approached by somebody who believes this strongly. I've never seen anything like this. I will give you what you want. Grocery stores that gave us locations for cheap. Just and some of them are also non-Arab that were very moved by the story and by, you know, Mike and our crew. So, you know, that truly is divine intervention. I agree for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you both very much. And yeah, I think you make excellent points as you have the entire time. I think the idea that the voices of support, the voices of communities behind you, the voices of just positivity and whatnot, you know, outranks any other whispers that you might hear in the distance that is best ignored. So
look, we were also very lucky that our director is truly a very positive person. You know, I think if Mike wasn't, we all may have been in trouble, but he is, I'll tell you, really leads his life with immense joy, and it is very infectious. So that made it easy.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm a little hangry at the moment, but that's fine.
Hangry? Oh, okay. I can get down with that.
Well, thank you again both very much for taking time to speak with me and for again allowing the Arab American National Museum, Arte East, and the Arab Film and Media Institute to bring this film to our audiences. And I do hope that we'll continue to bring this film, not just this one time during Arab American Heritage Month, but like, you know, throughout the coming year and years. And I think this film just is so important to continuously show and to continuously give a platform, even like decades into the future. Like it's a timeless film, right?
Thank you.
So I want to end by two questions. First off, for folks who are not able to see the film, maybe if I registered, but I have friends who really need to see this film, where can they find this film outside of this platform? And then also, what do you all have coming up next? What can we expect from you in the near future?
Yes, great question.
It's a great segue, yeah.
Great, yes. This is a monumental announcement that literally we just found out yesterday. So this is like hot off the presses.
Yeah.
You, while still being able to buy and or rent the film from anywhere you buy or rent the film, as of yesterday, we are now streaming on Hulu, and we are one of Hulu's picks for movies to watch. So if you are a Hulu subscriber, head on over and pick Breaking Fast and give it a thumbs up and watch the film. And if you don't have Hulu, buy or rent it. Still available to you.
Yeah, very exciting.
Mabruk, congratulations. That's amazing.
You. Yeah, we're thrilled.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very cool.
It is not every day that a queer Muslim rom-com finds its way to one of the major streamers. So we are so happy about that.
Yeah, it's pretty special. My brother called me this morning and said, I heard you have a movie on Hulu. It's pretty great.
And obviously we're keeping great company with Rami, which is on Hulu. So
yes.
Hulu's got a brand. So we should encourage all of our people to subscribe.
Uplift Hulu, absolutely.
Right, uplift Hulu.
Uplift Hulu. Hey, uplift those who uplift you. Why not?
Yeah. And in terms of what I'm working on right now, we're in the thick of production on a short documentary for you and the museum, which we're really, really excited about. The next screenplay that I just finished writing over quarantine is in the market, and I'm hoping that we'll shoot it in Michigan next year sometime, ideally over the summer. And we have just been approached and are developing a TV series based on, a movie you may or may not have seen already.
On Hulu.
What? No, don't say. Well, inshallah, but
maybe.
Sarah, what are you working on?
Right now, we're sort of still, I'm in the midst of festivals for this really powerful, very proud of it short called Are You Still There? That
Beautiful.
was, yeah, that was directed by Rika, written and directed by Rika and Sam. We just had our South by Southwest premiere, which was really special, and we did that virtually. It was actually my first time at that festival, which was such a really fun moment for me. So yeah, we're kind of still going through the rounds with that and trying to see what comes next for that project. It really sort of deals with Arabs kind of dealing with grief in this really beautiful, powerful, not like beat you over the head kind of way. It's really great. And then, you know, Dave, whatever Mike's working on, so because I'll follow him anywhere he goes.
Oh, it'd be my honor to walk beside you.
Oh, so sweet.
Beautiful. Well, I think that is a really good way to kind of tie up the conversation. I really want to thank both of you, Sarah and Mike, for taking time.
Thank you so much
again,
for this. What a treat.
Yeah, this has
Of
been
course.
great. Thank you so much. And thank you to the museum for this beautiful, beautiful event and opportunity. This has been very special for us. You know, I love the museum, even from when I was in Dearborn, from when I was younger. So this is special for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sarah and Mike. And thank you everybody for joining us for the Talkback today. The film Breaking Fast will be available for guests to watch up to 48 hours from 6 p.m. Eastern time today, which was just an hour ago, until April 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern. Please continue to stay connected with not only Sarah and Mike, but you know, the Arab American National Museum, and again, our wonderful partners, Arte East and the Arab Film and Media Institute. We look forward to seeing you at next month's screening in May, where we're proud to be working with the Doha Film Institute, and we'll be bringing 4 amazing films by the famous Palestinian director, actor, everybody, so many titles under his name, Elia Suleiman. More coming on that in the near future. But again, thank you so much for joining us. Happy Arab American Heritage Month. Ramadan Kareem to everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem. Thank you so much.